They thought they could fence me in. A bunch of HOA officials in pressed suits and clipboards thought I'd just roll over when they blocked the only road to my land. They were wrong. Right now, as you're watching this, I'm sitting on my porch counting the cash from the toll booth they forced me to build. Meanwhile, their president, Maxwell Bennett, is explaining to his superiors why the entire HOA budget just vanished into a rural nuisance fund. Spoiler: that nuisance is me. But let me back up. My name's Ethan Morgan. I'm 38, work remotely in business consulting, and live on a 30-acre ranch just outside Austin, Texas. I'm not some outlaw, not a conspiracy nut. I'm just a man who wanted a little peace and dirt under his boots. I bought this land 2 years ago with the dream of building something honest, an off-grid homestead powered by sun, sweat, and salt. It was the best decision of my life. Until one Tuesday afternoon, when I got a letter in my mailbox that would change everything. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever dealt with an HOA that tried to control something they had no business touching? If so, leave a comment below. I promise your story won't top this one. Because what started as a vague security update from the Golden Meadows HOA quickly spiraled into full-blown war. They claimed they were beautifying the neighborhood. What they really meant was they wanted me gone. And their first move? Build a fence across the only legal access road to my ranch. The kicker? That road's been there since 1972, and I've got the easement documents to prove it. But they didn't care. They thought I wouldn't fight back. They thought wrong. Vic added, because what they didn't know is that I've been taking apart electronics since I was 10. I grew up rebuilding busted radios and writing code for fun, and when I saw that metal gate go up where my driveway used to be, I knew exactly what to do. I didn't file a complaint. I didn't throw punches. I built a toll booth. Legally, logically, and profitably. And the best part? Their own fence was sitting on my land. You're about to hear how a quiet rancher with a little tech knowledge and a lot of stubbornness turned a land dispute into a viral movement, a legal smackdown, and a whole new kind of justice. So sit back, because this isn't just a story about one man and a road. This is a story about what happens when you corner someone who has nothing left to lose except his freedom. Next, I'll tell you how this whole thing really began. Up back when all I wanted was fresh eggs, a quiet sky, and a road that led home. I didn't grow up on a ranch. I grew up in a suburb outside Houston, where the grass was fake green, the fences were too close, and you got a warning letter if your trash bins were visible on non-collection days. So maybe that's why I always dreamed of something wilder, freer. 2 years ago, after too many Zoom calls and not enough sky, I finally pulled the trigger. I found this 30-acre plot outside Austin, untamed, overgrown, and absolutely perfect. Most folks saw a fixer-upper nightmare. I saw a blank canvas. A place where the only rules were the ones I built with my own 2 hands. The farmhouse leaned more left than straight. The barn had raccoons living rent-free, and the grass? Let's just say it was tall enough to lose a small child in. But the soil was rich, the water rights were ironclad, and when I stood in the center of that field with the wind in my face and no traffic noise for miles, I knew this wasn't just land. It chose me. Now, I work in business consulting, sure, but my real love? Always been tinkering. As a kid, I tore apart every broken appliance in our house. Once turned a microwave into a potato cannon. My parents weren't thrilled. But that DIY bug never left me. So when I got to the ranch, I didn't just plant vegetables. I programmed their watering schedule. I set up soil sensors, linked them to a weather API, and rigged an automated irrigation system that saved water and made my tomatoes the envy of the county. The chicken coop? Solar power. Doors open at sunrise, close at sunset. One time it even locked a raccoon inside. Poor guy didn't see it coming. And when my goats started showing signs of labor, I didn't call a vet. I got creative. Movement sensors, text alerts, night vision cameras. I built a birthing alert system more advanced than some hospitals. People laughed at first. But every weekend, local families would stop by, buying eggs, produce, even homemade goat cheese. They'd walk through my field, see the gadgets, and say, "This is like a tech fair met a farm." And I loved it. This ranch wasn't just land. It was my workshop, my refuge, my rebellion against a world that tries to box you in with rules and HOA newsletters. It gave me peace, purpose, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. So when some clipboard cowboy from Dallas decided his plans were more important than my rights, I didn't just see a fence. I saw a declaration of war. But we'll get there. Right now, if you've ever dreamed of quitting the rat race and building something of your own, whether it's a garden, a garage studio, or just a life you control, hit that like button, drop a comment below about what your dream looks like, and subscribe if you want to see how this all unfolds. Because the next part? That's when the war begins. And it all starts with a letter in the mailbox. I didn't know much about HOAs before I moved out here. Sure, I'd heard the horror stories. Some guy getting fined $75.00 because his lawn gnome was too expressive, or a family being threatened for putting up an American flag on the wrong day. But I figured that's suburb stuff. I'm a rancher. Half a mile of pasture separates me and the nearest box of cereal. I grow my own food, fix my own roof, and haven't worn dress pants since my cousin's wedding. So when I saw that official-looking envelope from the Golden Meadows Homeowners Association in my mailbox, my first thought was, wrong address. I don't live in Golden Meadows. I don't even like Golden Meadows. I like dusty boots, creaky barns, and goats that side-eye you like they know something you don't. But the letter had my name. And it had that tone, the one that says, "We're smiling, but we're about to ruin your week." Apparently, even though my land isn't part of their neighborhood, the only road leading to my ranch cuts through their pristine kingdom of identical mailboxes and silent sprinklers. It's a public easement, been there since Nixon. But to the HOA, I was even more scared than I had ever been. I was unregulated a security concern. Translation, I didn't fit their curated aesthetic. The letter mentioned unauthorized usage of private access ways and pending community beautification initiatives, which in HOA speak usually means we're going to do something shady and we're hoping you're too confused to stop us. Now let me pause for a second. If you've never dealt with an HOA, here's what you need to know. They're like mini governments, but without elections, transparency, or common sense. They write their own rules, enforce them however they want, and half the time they're run by people who peaked as hall monitors in middle school. To be fair, not all HOAs are bad. Some do keep neighborhoods clean, safe, and organized. But the problem starts when the wrong kind of people get a hold of a clipboard and a monthly budget. People like Maxwell Bennett, tall, impeccably dressed, perfect hair, the kind of guy who introduces himself as formerly of Dallas real estate, as if that's supposed to impress me. He was new in town, but already president of the HOA. That should have been a red flag. Real Texans don't trust a man who volunteers too fast. At the meeting, he ran like a political campaign. He talked about increasing property values, modernizing infrastructure, and eliminating inconsistencies. Guess who was the inconsistent? See, HOA folks like Maxwell operate on fear. They send vague letters, throw around terms like security upgrades or development initiatives, and hope you'll fold before you realize they're bluffing. But here's the thing. You don't bluff a man who's been bitten by a goat, electrocuted by his own chicken door, and taught himself zoning law because he was bored one weekend. So I went to that meeting. Hannah said, I walked in with mud on my boots and grease on my jeans, right between two folks in tennis whites sipping cucumber water, and I took a seat. They weren't ready. And if you're still here watching, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below if your HOA has ever crossed a line. And don't forget to like this video so more folks know what happens when power goes unchecked behind picket fences. Because next, Maxwell drops the bombshell. They're building a gate, a giant locked metal gate, right across the road to my home. And it's going up tomorrow. Let me tell you how that went. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the war officially began. I'd just finished installing a new automated goat feeding system. Nothing fancy, just a series of sensors and time dispensers tied to an app on my phone. I was still covered in hay and motor grease when I opened my mailbox and saw it. A certified letter. Thick envelope. Embossed HOA seal like it came straight from the Vatican of suburban bureaucracy. And it right there, standing in the dust, boots still muddy. And as I read, my stomach dropped. Notice of special meeting, Golden Meadows Homeowners Association. Discussion of unauthorized roadway usage and upcoming security enhancements. Now, I'm not a paranoid guy, but when you get a formal summons from people who've never acknowledged your existence before, just days before they break ground on something called a security enhancement, you pay attention. And you show up. So that Thursday, I shaved, threw on a clean flannel, and drove straight to the Golden Meadows Community Center in my beat-up Dodge pickup. Rain was falling hard, Texas spring thunderstorm style, the kind that makes you wonder if your windshield wipers are just for show. I pulled into the lot between two spotless SUVs. My license plate was half obscured by dried mud. Their bumpers gleamed like they'd never touched gravel. Reddy felt out of place. Inside, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and suspicion. Folding chairs in perfect rows, neighbors I barely knew sitting like they were at a courtroom drama. I gave Frank Hamilton a nod. Retired engineer, good man, one of the few folks who still brought over homemade pie instead of problems. Benny walked in. Maxwell Bennett. You ever meet someone and just know they've never installed their own ceiling fan? Maxwell had the look, salt and pepper hair, too perfect for Texas humidity, a suit that probably cost more than my water pump, and that kind of rehearsed smile that politicians use when they're lying about budget cuts. He introduced himself like we were at a TED Talk. Maxwell Bennett, president of the Golden Meadows HOA, previously with Sterling Ridge Developments in Dallas. Of course he was. Standing next to him was Patricia Lawson, the HOA manager, holding a tablet like it was a national security brief, and eyeing me like I'd tracked in anthrax. Maxwell ran through the usual HOA song and dance. Landscaping updates, pool renovations, community BBQ. Everyone nodded. Laughed. It was all very civilized. And then he dropped the hammer. As part of our long-term vision, he said, tapping a remote, we'll be adding a modern security gate at the entrance to Golden Meadows, complete with stone pillars, access cards, and license plate recognition for safety and privacy. The projector lit up with architectural renderings, towering gates, manicured hedges, a road I recognized all too well. And road. He called it an eyesore, said it encouraged unmonitored traffic. Unmonitored traffic, that's me, the neighbor who grows your tomatoes and keeps coyotes off your backyard. I felt my chest tighten, my jaw clenched. Frank looked over at me, eyes wide. He knew. I stood up, slow and steady, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, I'm Ethan Morgan. I own the ranch at the end of that road, and I have a legal easement to access my property through that route. You can't block it. Dead silence. Maxwell blinked. His smile didn't break, but his eyes did. Cold. Calculating. Well, Mr. Morgan, he said, oozing condescension. While there may have been informal arrangements in the past, the board has unanimously approved this project. You'll be able to purchase an annual access card for $3,000.00. He said it like he was doing me a favor, like I should thank him for charging me to enter my own damn home. And just like that, he moved on to the next item on the agenda. I stood there, fists clenched, heart pounding in my ears. It was clear. This wasn't about safety. This was about control, about pressure, about forcing me off the land they wanted for themselves. As the meeting wrapped up, I stormed into the rain, boots slapping against the wet pavement. That's when George Miller, longtime resident, quiet guy, caught up to me under the awning. He leaned in, voice low. Maxwell needs your land to finish his development deal, he said. That gate? Just the first move. Next will be fines, violations, water access issues. He's done this before. You're just the next domino. I nodded. I didn't say a word, because I already knew this wasn't going to end in a meeting room. So if you're watching this right now, and you've ever been blindsided by people in power who thought they could run you off your own land, smash that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. I want to hear your story. Because tomorrow morning, at the crack of dawn, they started building that fence. And that's when the real fight began. The first sound I heard that morning wasn't birds or goats or the breeze rolling off the pasture. It was the beep, beep, beep of a construction vehicle backing up. I bolted upright in bed, still wearing yesterday's jeans, and ran straight out the front door. No coffee, no socks, just boots half-laced, and a sick feeling in my stomach. And there it was. An 8-foot metal fence, rising from the ground like some dystopian railroad barrier, only this one didn't block trains. It blocked me. 2 guys in yellow vests were digging post holes like their lives depended on it. A small excavator was already laying concrete foundations, and just beyond that, the frame of a sleek, motorized security gate gleamed in the morning sun, like it belonged outside some overpriced suburban wine bar. I jogged down the driveway, waving my arms. "Hey, who's in charge here?" The workers didn't look up. One of them muttered, "We're just following orders, sir." I knew exactly whose orders. 10 minutes later, like he was summoned from a Bond villain casting call, Maxwell Bennett pulled up in his luxury SUV, clean as a preacher's conscience, and stepped out like he owned the county. Patricia trailed behind him, tablet in hand, lips pursed like she smelled manure. Joke's on her, she probably did. Maxwell handed me a piece of paper he called a permit, though he was careful not to let me read it for more than 5 seconds. "This is HOA property, Mr. Morgan," he said smoothly. "You're free to apply for an annual access card, $3,000, 0 cents. Temporary cards good for 7 days. Patricia will process it for you." Then he gave me that smile. You know the one. The kind rich people wear when they think they've just outsmarted the help. I stared at that gate, watched the welders seal my future shut, and something in me snapped. Not in a loud, explosive way, not fists or shouting. It was quieter than that. Shift. The kind that happens when a man realizes no one's coming to save him. Kant took the temporary card, didn't say a word. Drove back to my house, poured myself a black coffee, sat at my kitchen table, stared out the window. And then I started reading. Texas land law, easement rights, county ordinances, fence placement regulations. I dug up my original property survey, spread out blueprints, notes, maps across the table like I was planning a bank heist. And that's when I saw it. A messed up fence. It wasn't just blocking my access. Part of it was actually on my land. 3 feet, that's all. But 3 feet was all I needed. I called Olivia, my old friend and real estate attorney, told her everything, sent photos, measurements. She confirmed it. They built on my property, and that made it a whole different ballgame. But instead of marching back with lawyers and threats, I did something they never saw coming. I got creative. Because if Maxwell wanted to put up a gate and charge me to use a public easement, then maybe I'd build a gate of my own. And miss one? We wouldn't just block access. It would make me money. If you've ever been pushed into a corner, if you've ever watched someone violate your rights with a smirk and a permit they barely read, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment below. You called the next part? That's where I turned this fence into a toll booth. It started with a tape measure, where vehicles had rolled into the field at the edge of the farmyard. I walked the fence line that night with a flashlight in one hand and my old survey map in the other. Every landmark, every post, every line the county had ever signed off on. And when I reached the northeast corner, right where the new HOA gate met the curve of the road, I found it. A 3-foot encroachment. Not much to the untrained eye. But to someone who spent half his life building things by hand and the other half reading legal code for fun, it was gold. They had accidentally built part of their fancy new gate on my land, and I knew exactly what to do with it. See, this wasn't just about proving a point anymore. This was about leverage, and leverage in Texas is best applied with a cordless drill, a welder, and a stubborn streak a mile wide. I called my buddy Ryan Cooper, local contractor, straight shooter, the kind of guy who fixes fences with one hand while drinking a Dr. Pepper with the other. I showed him the boundary maps and walked him right to the spot. He looked at the gate, looked at me, then spit out his toothpick and said, let's build a toll booth. We high-fived like a couple of teenagers planning a prank, only this time the prank came with legal paperwork and a payment terminal. That weekend, Ryan brought 2 of his guys. I brought tools, spare electronics, and 3 months' worth of irritation. We worked straight through the night under portable floodlights. Ryan hammered. I wired sensors. One of his guys painted a sign that read, "Clean vehicle road crossing, $20, 0 cents per pass. Monthly pass, $100, 0 cents. No exceptions." I programmed the lift arm myself, used a recycled garage motor, a Raspberry Pi controller, and a mobile payment reader that synced to my phone. And before sunrise, the Golden Meadows toll stop was fully operational. Solar-powered, legally permitted, positioned exactly 3 feet onto my land. Cars started lining up by late morning, confused residents trying to return from weekend errands. They rolled down windows, blinked at me, and asked, "What is this?" I smiled, leaned out of the booth, and said, "Same thing Maxwell did to me, just in reverse." Some folks laughed, some grumbled, most paid, a few called the cops. Officer Ramirez showed up around noon. Nice guy, level-headed. Had responded once before when a goat escaped and caused a minor traffic jam. He reviewed my survey papers, checked the boundary lines, looked at the toll booth, and said, "You're on your own property. It's weird, but it's legal." And just like that, we were in business. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't you feel bad charging people just trying to get home? Short answer, no. Long answer, Maxwell made me pay $3,000, 0 cents to cross his fence. I was just returning the favor, except mine came with a receipt, a smile, and a solar charger. And besides, sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to out-bureaucrat him. If you've ever had to fight back the smart way, if you've ever looked at a situation and thought, 2 can play this game, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me in the comments how you got creative when someone tried to push you around. Because what happened next? Let's just say, when Maxwell found out, he didn't take it well. I didn't have to wait long. By Sunday afternoon, the toll booth was the talk of the town. Golden Meadows group chats were lighting up. Parents were texting each other. Do we need cash to get back into the neighborhood now? But the best part? Patricia Lawson was the first to find it. She rolled up in her pearl-white Lexus, her sunglasses barely hiding the look of confused rage on her face. She pulled up to the booth, stared at the sign, then stared at me. Standing there in a button-up shirt, ranch cap, and the kind of calm expression that only comes from knowing you've just flipped the game board upside down. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, rolling down her window halfway like I was contagious. I smiled, leaned in, and said, "Good afternoon, Ms. Lawson. This road runs across my land, and starting today there's a fee to use it. $20, 0 cents per crossing, monthly passes available." Her jaw dropped. She refused to pay, parked on the shoulder, dialed her phone so furiously I thought the screen might crack. I didn't need to ask who she was calling, because 30 minutes later, like thunder in a 3-piece suit, Maxwell Bennett came barreling down the street in his perfectly waxed SUV. He slammed the door, stormed toward the booth, and that's when I knew. He had cracked. His face was redder than Texas clay. His voice shook not with fear, but ego damage. "You can't do this," he shouted. "This is extortion. You're blocking a public road." I didn't flinch. "This isn't a public road," I said calmly. "It's an easement, and you were the one who put up the gate first. I'm just following your example." He pointed a trembling finger at the camera mounted on my booth. "This is harassment. I'll call the police." I nodded. "Already spoke to them." Officer Ramirez confirmed I'm well within my rights, but feel free to call again. Just have your survey map ready this time. A small crowd had gathered by then, neighbors returning from weekend errands, phones out, recording. Someone whispered, "He's losing it." Someone else muttered, "Honestly, he had it coming." Maxwell paced in circles. His lawyer must have been speed-dialed into his Bluetooth because I could hear bits of the conversation. "No, he's charging them $20 per crossing. No, I don't think he's bluffing. Yes, people are actually paying him." When he finally turned back to me, he was out of threats and full of desperation. This isn't over, Morgan." I leaned on the booth window, gave him the same smug smile he'd given me days before. "I know." Then I tapped the sign we'd just added. "Maxwell Benissaret proclaimed winner of Pair Day Crossing." The crowd laughed. He didn't. He peeled out so hard he kicked gravel halfway to the neighbors' hydrangeas. But that was only the beginning. Over the next few days, the HOA board met in a panic. Residents were furious, not at me, but at Maxwell, for dragging the neighborhood into a public spectacle. Frank told me people were asking questions. Why are we paying legal fees and a toll? Why is our president in a shouting match at a roadside shack? That kept collecting payments. Polite, smiling, issuing receipts. And then came the final straw. Vandalism. One night around 2 a.m., my security system pinged me. Motion alerts. And folks, I opened the feed, and there they were. Maxwell and Depression. And a third man I didn't recognize, maybe a lawyer, maybe just a friend with poor judgment. Caught in 4K, spray painting my camera lenses, trying to rip down the payment terminal. One of them even took a crowbar to the toll arm. What they didn't know? I had backup cameras. Infrared. Recording directly to the cloud. The next morning, I filed charges. Trespassing, property damage, attempted sabotage. And I posted the footage online. By lunchtime, it had gone viral. People were tagging their friends. This is better than Netflix. Texas man outsmarts corrupt HOA. Watch until the end. Maxwell's Meltdown, brought to you by Karma and Goat Cheese. If you have ever wanted to see justice play out in real time, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below with your favorite part of the video so far. Because next, we take this fight to court. And trust me, Maxwell wasn't. The day we went to court, it was sunny. Too sunny. The kind of morning where you'd rather be fixing fence posts or sipping coffee on your porch, not walking into a government building to battle a man in Italian leather shoes and enough arrogance to power a small city. But there I was. Clean shirt. Steel nerves. Easement papers tucked under one arm, a flash drive full of footage in my coat pocket, and Olivia, my lawyer and secret weapon, walking beside me like a 5'2" legal hurricane. Maxwell showed up late, of course. He waltzed in like it was a country club brunch, tailored suit, slick hair, fake smile so polished it reflected sunlight. Next to him, his high-priced attorney, William Davis, looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. They underestimated me. The Maxwell thought this was going to be a simple cease and desist hearing, that I'd get nervous, fold under pressure, and take down the toll booth. What he didn't know, we had a vault of evidence, and I wasn't just playing defense anymore. Olivia opened with the easement, filed in 1972, still valid, still binding, recorded at the county clerk's office. She laid it down like a royal flush. Then came the fun part. Exhibit B, the emails. Oh yeah, we had them. One of the HOE residents, bless their anonymous soul, had leaked internal emails Maxwell thought were private. In them, Maxwell wrote, and I quote, "Once Morgan realizes he can't access his land, he'll fold. We'll offer a buyout at 60% market value. The board doesn't need to know everything yet. Just keep the language vague." That landed like a grenade in the courtroom. You could see Maxwell's attorney start sweating through his suit. You could see Patricia, sitting behind him, suddenly very interested in the ceiling tiles. Then Olivia played the surveillance video, crystal clear footage of Maxwell spray painting my cameras, crowbar in hand, looking like a frat boy who lost a bet. We paused on a still frame. Maxwell, mid-swing, eyes wide, caught in the act. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Bennett, is that you?" Maxwell tried to mumble something about deep fakes and edited footage, but the judge had already seen enough. "This isn't just a property dispute," he said, rubbing his temples. "This is a coordinated attempt to harass a legal property owner and manipulate access for private gain." Then came the final blow. Olivia reached into her folder and pulled out a recording, one taken at our negotiation meeting. Remember? The one where Maxwell told me, in his own words, that the board votes how I tell them to. They don't read the documents, the development will happen, with or without you. We had posted a legal notice in the room stating the conversation might be recorded, but apparently Maxwell had skipped that part. Too busy thinking he was untouchable. The judge looked stunned. Maxwell's own words had just lit the match, and we handed him the gasoline. At the end of the hearing, the judge ruled in our favor. Easement upheld, gate removed, legal fees covered. Maxwell fired. The HOA board held a public vote 3 days later. Nancy Fletcher, longtime resident and beloved community firecracker, led the charge. She stood up in front of a packed room and asked, "Do we want a leader who spray paints security cameras in the dead of night like a raccoon with a grudge?" That vote wasn't even close. Maxwell was out. Patricia resigned the same day. William Davis quietly withdrew from the HOA's legal counsel. Rumor is he moved to Florida. I dismantled the toll booth. Took it down piece by piece, smiling the whole time. But I didn't throw it away. We'll talk about that in a minute. First, if you've ever taken on a bully with more money, more power, and more smugness than sense, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and let me know in the comments how you stood your ground. Because up next, what happened after the dust settled surprised even me. When the dust finally settled, my lamb was quiet again. No construction noise. No angry SUVs rolling up to my gate. No clipboard-wielding tyrants pretending a security fence was just aesthetic enhancement. Just the wind through the trees, the cluck of my hens, and the soft hum of solar panels doing their job. Peace, the way it was always meant to be. The toll booth? Well, technically gone. We dismantled it, yeah, but I kept every single piece. The dairy arm? Turned it into a swing for the kids in town. The payment terminal? We purchased it for workshops. The cameras? Now track deer and raccoons for an educational wildlife live stream that local schools actually use in their science lessons. Maxwell Bennett, meanwhile, put his house on the market. Word was, nobody wanted to buy. The HOA scandal had made headlines across the state. One neighbor said he might get a better deal selling to a true crime podcast. And me. I threw a BBQ. Not just any BBQ. This one was big. I sent out invites to every resident of Golden Meadows. Except one, of course. We strung up lights between the trees, grilled ribs and brisket from sunrise to sunset. Kids played tag in the pasture. Folks took pictures next to the sign I'd posted where the toll booth used to be. Never pick a fight with a rancher who knows how to build stuff and has too much free time. That line got a few laughs. But it also started conversations. See, during that BBQ something shifted. Frank and Eleanor, my neighbors from the start, pulled me aside. "Do you ever think about turning this place into more than just a ranch?" Frank asked. "A teaching spot. A real resource for the community." And something clicked. All those systems I'd built. Automated irrigation, solar-charged chicken coops, smart goat trackers. They weren't just gadgets. They were tools people could use. Real working ideas for folks who wanted to live better, grow smarter, and stop depending on overpriced, overcomplicated nonsense. So I got to work. Again, within a few months, the ranch became a weekend destination. We started holding DIY farming workshops, community gardening classes, tech for farmers boot camps. Local schools began bringing students for field trips. I even partnered with the university's Ag Extension Office for a research project. What started with spite turned into service. And that toll booth? It paid for every bit of it. Funny, isn't it? Maxwell wanted to raise property values by pushing me out. But in the end, it was my little ranch with goats and tomatoes and solar panels that brought the biggest boost to the neighborhood. If you're still watching, here's what I'll say. Never underestimate the power of small solutions. Ivan with a fence thought he could control a community, but a man with a toll booth and a stubborn heart turned it into something better. Stick around, because in the final part, I'll share the one lesson I wish I'd known when all this started. It's not about revenge. It's about what happens after the storm. It's funny how a fight about a road became a story about everything else. About dignity. About standing your ground. Offensive about what one stubborn guy with a soldering iron and a goat pasture can do when the system forgets he's human. But more than anything, it became a story about what happens after the war ends. Because I didn't set out to be some local legend. I didn't dream about lawsuits, toll booths, or viral news articles. I just wanted to live quietly on my land, grow my food, build things that worked, help a neighbor fix their generator once in a while. But the moment they put up that fence, the moment they looked at me like I didn't belong, they forgot one important thing. This land chose me, and I wasn't going anywhere. These days I still wake up with the sun, still check on the goats, still tinker with solar rigs. But now, a dozen kids show up every Saturday to learn how to build their first chicken coop. Local veterans stop by to talk about off-grid living. Teachers send thank you notes after we run garden labs for their science classes. The ranch became a place of learning, of connection, of healing. And somehow, me, a guy who once got in trouble for rewiring his middle school's vending machine, became someone people came to for guidance. And that toll booth money? Every penny went into a land rights defense fund. We help folks now, anyone getting squeezed by HOA power trips, shady developers, or manipulative contracts. We show them how to push back, legally, creatively, calmly. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's transformation. It's turning a trap into a bridge, a barrier into a beacon. And that's the real legacy, not the gate they tried to bury me behind, but the open road I carved through it. So if you're watching this thinking, man, I'm just one person, what can I even do? Let me be living proof. You don't need a title, a badge, or a law degree to fight back. You just need the truth, a little bit of creativity, and the guts to say, not today. And when that moment comes, when the clipboard crowd tries to push you off your own land, off your own path, remember this. Build your toll booth, not out of spite, but out of purpose. Because you never know. Your fight might just be the blueprint someone else needs. Now, before you go, if this story meant something to you, I'd be honored if you'd like the video, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs it. Drop a comment below, tell me about the time you stood your ground or the moment you wish you had. And if you're ever driving through Texas and you see a little wooden sign that says, "The Road That Fought Back," well, stop by. We'll save you a plate of brisket.